Good morning, everybody. It's Jane Johnston with the Berry Hill Group at Remax Camosun. I'm here in Victoria, British Columbia, and we're going to do a Remax cross-country market update. I'm here with, let's start introducing ourselves. Laura June, why don't you start?
Hi, I'm Laura June. I'm with Remax Little Oak Realty in Surrey, British Columbia, and I serve the Lower Mainland.
Okay, Stephen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephen Lau from Remax in Edmonton, Alberta. I serve everything within 1 hour of the center of Edmonton.
Okay, John.
Hi, I'm John Sheehan. I am serving the Comox Valley in beautiful Vancouver Island.
Hey, Jeff.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jeff Barley from Remax Real Estate Services here in Vancouver, and we do represent the Lower Mainland.
Okay, and Rebecca.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rebecca, and I'm with Remax Charlottetown. I actually, the whole island, our little island isn't very big.
Harpreet.
Hi, everyone. I'm Harpreet Christie, and my servicing area is Lloydminster, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Canada's only border city.
Okay, and Carol.
I'm Carol Bass. I'm with Remax West and the Greater Toronto area. And I guess I'm like Stephen with the woman on the move can go within an hour or an hour and a half and that's just staying within the GTA.
Drive until you qualify, right?
Yes.
Okay, and Ken.
Hello, everybody. Ken McClelland in Kamloops, BC. Great to be on the call today.
Okay, if you guys don't mind, if you could put your cities beside your names, you can edit that. That would be great. And I'm just going to change this right now and put this back up. I hope that's okay if I do that. Okay. All right. So first of all, how's your market going? Let's start with our BC folks. We have some big news. Laura June, you want to go over what the news is that we received yesterday?
Well, we have a new premier here in BC, as most people are aware that our premier that we had elected, John Horgan, was ill. He had a cancer diagnosis, doing well and recovering from that, but he has decided basically to retire from his position as premier, and Mr. Eby is now our premier. There are some big changes coming very quickly to our real estate because of these changes. David Eby has different ideas on real estate and how to help with affordability in British Columbia. So there's some new changes coming, and I think they're coming on Thursday, Jane. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I heard it's Thursday. They're voting all that through, and it will be immediate once it happens.
Okay, so there's 3 changes that will be happening. One is they're going to be removing the age restrictions except for 55 plus buildings. So they're opening it up for everybody. They're going to be allowing rentals. So no longer will there be restricted rentals in buildings. And that's to take care of the empty condos. Also, it will prevent people from having to sell if they pass away and their estate goes into probate. They won't have to necessarily sell. And then the third one, I can't remember the third one.
I'll look it up.
Okay. Anyway, so what that's going to do, I think, is cause a run on condos here. I don't know if anybody else would agree with that. But so it's a big change. Anybody else have big changes in their provinces right now happening? Economic? Nothing? Okay. So Stephen from Alberta, how are things going with you?
Alberta generally did not experience the massive price escalation that BC and Ontario had during the pandemic. I mean, the first spike was the first year of the pandemic, and the market went up 11%, which is pretty dramatic when most times our city doesn't fluctuate more than a couple of percentage points. So there's a lot less fluctuation because, Alberta is I'll say a working class province, and the rich retirees with lots of cash, they tend to spike up the prices in other parts of Canada, and that's not our problem. But the inflation and the interest rate hikes has definitely made a notable difference in the amount of traffic and in the amount of sales. Sales are down. Single family home sales were down about 23% from 1 year ago, but prices were still slightly up from a year past, a couple percentage points. But our single family home average price is only $462,858. And I think Carol Bass from Toronto would note there's a lot of people who see all the bus ads that say you can buy a house in Alberta for like a third the price of what you can in Toronto or BC. So we are definitely getting a lot of movement coming from particularly the working class, younger generation demographic to Alberta. And that's a good thing. And well, we'll see what happens in the coming year. But I do predict the market will stabilize once people get used to higher interest rates and inflation does settle down, and then people's budgets will be a little bit more predictable. So hopefully in time for the late spring market, I think things may improve.
Well, I've just pulled up my stats here. So I am curious, what have you guys noticed? Did everyone else have a peak in February, March area?
Yes.
Even
Okay.
January, February here, it was a little sooner, I think, than other people in some pockets.
Okay. And then what's the reduction from January to now, or February, March in other, John, why don't you talk about it in the Cowichan Valley? Because you guys are kind of further out. Like things seem to heat up in Victoria, then they go up island, then they come back down. So I find that you're kind of a canary for the real estate market here.
And we're the Comox Valley, not the Cowichan Valley. So we're further up north than Cowichan. But yes, you're right, Jane. We are a little bit different than the Victoria and the big cities. But you know what? We had our business meeting this morning, and really the news is really we're just finding the news right now is scaring a lot of consumers away. Realistically, our market is the same as it was. Sales wise, we're the same sales wise as we were last November. So over this past week, we've had 30 sales. Well, last November, we had 31 sales. Inventory is, of course, gone up. Days of market has gone up. Prices are coming down here, but we're starting to see them kind of level out over this past week or so, or 2 weeks, I should say. We actually saw a couple of multiple offers this week. So I don't know. Typically, November, December is a slow time for Comox Valley, but people do come visit this area over Christmas, kind of get interested, chatting with friends and family, and then usually by February, they'll come back and start buying homes. So, yeah.
Okay. Rebecca, you're on the east coast of Canada. So what are you finding there? I'm really curious.
Interestingly, it's still pretty good market. We're finding, so first of all, our PEI average, our price per home has increased by almost 15%. We're sitting at around $389,000 for the average price home. We're also expecting probably about a 6.9% increase in 2023. We feel this is kind of due to, obviously lack of inventory, very big on the provincial nominee program here. So that is, definitely keeping our pricing up. Our median number of days has gone up though. So things are obviously lasting on the market. We're averaging about 37 and a half days on market per average. And I think we're just kind of, I don't know, I think we've definitely leveled out. Prices are coming down slightly, but not a whole lot.
Is that compared to last year or earlier in the year prices?
That is compared to earlier in the year.
Okay. All right. Let's go to a big city here, Toronto and Vancouver. So what are you guys finding in the market?
Well, according to Treb, we're over 47% down since October 2021 as far as our price. Yes. And now the weird part is Treb. I'm having a problem with some of the Treb stats when I was pulling them up because of the fact that I understand maybe trying to be positive. And like the second quarter, I know last year that there was a drop, a typical house that was 1.5, perhaps in April was 1.2 by August. So they dropped by 300,000. They're trying to say the demand is like a lot for land sites, industrial. The condo market did have an upswing because they went in a different kind of sense. The condo sales in the third quarter of 2021, there was 7,795, and the price range was 689. And then in the third quarter of 2022, there was only 4,177 sales, but prices were up to 720. But they were trying but the rentals, a lot is because of investors and some people not wanting to list because they realized a one bedroom went from 2,061 to 2,481 in price. So they went up by about 500,000. And I mean, even with this one bedroom, I had a bachelor that jumped by over 500, like $500 a month.
Okay, you're talking about leases.
Yes, but I'm just saying, I think that what's happened is there's people holding on thinking there's such a huge demand for it. They'll take a hit on the sale.
Oh,
So
okay.
they're figuring that if they rent it, that's a smarter investment for them. But now the weird thing is I listened to the TEDx report of more like economists versus the real estate. And they were actually saying that we're heading for they think another drop. They're saying that we need to drop by 2% on the interest rate, or the public is going to take the hit of 25% more of a drop in February to September of next year.
In prices. Okay, Jeff, what are you finding?
Yeah, so Carol, I think your numbers are bang on what we have here in Vancouver. So right now we are down. So I'll just give you three different approaches here. So detached homes are down 44% in sales volume, condos down 45.1, and then townhouses are actually down 52% in sales units. Now, from the beginning of the year till now, as far as price reductions, we're down about 5% from what they were selling for in January and February. So, that's pretty significant when I look at that number, but that's again just 1 year. So I always look at the 10-year average, and I think Jane, you and I were talking about this the other day. Actually, the 10-year average here in Vancouver, we are down 33%. So it's quite dramatic as far as the sales volume. We're definitely seeing. To give you an idea, like last month, we had 585 sales for single-family detached, where the year before was exactly 1,100. So that gives you an idea as to what movement we're not seeing right now. Certainly with the interest rate hikes, and 6 of them that we've seen, and at these higher price points in these bigger cities, it's really impacting the buyer's power here. And Jane, I think it's like you talked about how you sort of see things work its way out from the big cities, and that's what I've always said for Vancouver as well. Picture yourself taking a stone and throwing it into a pond. And when you see the ripple effect work its way out, so I always say where that rock lands, that's Vancouver. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what's that.
That's very Vancouver centric of you. I agree, though. I agree.
Yeah, I mean that's where we are right now.
Okay, Harpreet, how about you? You're in 2 markets.
Yes, we're in 2, and you know what? Like I really enjoyed hearing how everybody had such a crazy busy market and price crazy, but here in Lloydminster, we're still suffering from our oil crash in 2015. And so that being said, we have more and more bank repossessions still coming out. So if you drive around Lloydminster, you'll see there's white signs in the window. and eventually these properties are going to come up for sale. Our average price range here is only around the 310,000 mark, and it's taking about 53 days on the market to sell. Now in spring, we did have like a little bit increase in sale pricing. So all of a sudden there was a demand of a certain type of home with triple garages, and usually we'd have them listed at the 479 mark, and then they went around the 520 mark. Now, that being said, we had a number of purchasers from Ontario come down and purchase properties here.
Nice.
So they were so used to, no, we have to write an offer, a full list or more. When, you're trying to educate them and say, we don't have to do that, we're not in that market, but they were worried about losing the house. So we did have a slight increase in pricing and sales, but every week, every day, there's a number of homes being reduced, and they are being reduced back to where actually it should be, and eventually they sell. So that's what's happening in our market. We're one of the most affordable places to live right now.
Okay, Ken, do you want to argue that? Are you the most affordable place to live? Oh, I think he's stuck.
He's frozen.
It's muted.
I think Charlottetown's the winner right now.
Okay, well, I'll just go over a little bit about our market. So we were up in February around 1.45, and we peaked there. We had a list to sale ratio of about 1 to 1.2. So for every 10 houses, we were selling 12, and our inventory was going down. So we had record low inventories. I think last year we were around 800 at this time. We're now around 2,000. So that's more normal. And we found like we followed a regular kind of schedule of real estate where we had a bump in the spring, and now we're going through a bit of a bump right now. There's houses that are selling right now, people trying to get in before Christmas. Price-wise, we're down to where we were almost a year ago, and that's a good thing. So we're around 1.2 for a single-family home. Condos are up year over year, and I'm not surprised by that because I think they were depressed with COVID, and so they're up around 625, whereas a year ago they're around 550. And then townhomes tend to vary quite a bit, but they've settled down as well. And what I'm noticing is prices really evening out over time. So I'm agreeing what you're saying, Harpreet, that they're going back to normal. So what do you guys anticipate is going to happen in the spring? Ken, how about you? What's happening in Kamloops, and what do you anticipate is happening in the spring? Oh, you are very good.
Sarah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I was muted. So we're already seeing some leveling out. Like inventory levels had gone up to almost normal, and now they've dropped off a little bit. And that could be a byproduct of, well, it's wintertime. I don't really feel like having my house for sale in the wintertime, especially in a slow market. And so we're seeing kind of normalized inventory levels. We're seeing a leveling of the market. Like the bottom was, I wouldn't say the bottom was falling out. That's an exaggeration. But we went from, Kamloops Real Estate Board measures single family detached in terms of median price. And so median price peaked in April at $815. Median price at the end of October was $695. So that's a substantial difference. Our sales level is down also. I mean, the sales in October of single family detached were 150. In 2021, that number was 277. In 2020, that number was 337, which was huge. But I think part of the reason that it was a little lower last year, because last year in October the market was mental. It was just, there was nothing to sell. There was very little inventory. And so I think some of those numbers that we're looking at are a product partly of market conditions, but partly because of low inventory levels as well. So we're seeing sort of normalized inventory. We're seeing sales starting to sort of normalize. We're seeing the market normalize. And I've been telling people that for quite some time now, that hey, look, this isn't anything out of the ordinary. The long-term interest rates are still below the long-term average. So, don't worry about it a whole bunch. If you're making your payments, if you're sitting there, don't take a loss on purpose and sell your house now because you're afraid of interest rates going up, because lots of people, they're not even looking at renewing their mortgage for another 2-3 years if they took a 5-year fixed. So they're in pretty good shape anyways, and things will have leveled out by then. So I think we're going to see kind of a normal market. It was so hot for so long that what is a normal market will seem like a slow market. So I think that's what we're going to see.
And so are you guys finding that sellers are still wanting the prices? Like, what are you telling people who have listed now when they're comparing their housing to the market in February and March and thinking that they can get that same price, Laura June?
Well, they're not going to get the same price. I think here probably we're one of the places where prices spiked so much. I'm using numbers. If a property were to have sold, in January for $2 million, now that same property is more like 1.5, 1.6. We've seen about a 20% drop from the absolute peak. That's kind of how I'm pricing, and it seems to be working. That seems to be where the market is at, about 20% off the crazy peak.
So what do you think, Jeff? You're in the similar area.
Well, it's interesting because Laura June's right. Like the Fraser Valley definitely took a little bit more of a hit than what we've seen. Like they really did peak and then again drop. So we didn't see as significant of a drop. Like right now, the benchmark for us of a home tripped a little bit, but we're at 1.8, 1.9 for a single family detached home, right? Year over year, it was 1.835 last year, right? So it's like Ken was saying, I think we're getting back to, we're exactly the pricing where we were this time last year. So Laura June definitely saw a much steeper decline in pricing than what we saw in the Lower Mainland.
Okay, to Rebecca now. I'm just wondering, what are you telling people who bought between January and June of this year?
What am I telling who? The buyers or the sellers?
Buyers.
You know what, again, I still feel like because we're at such a different price point, they're still feeling like the value is still there. When you guys are talking about, at your peak, when people were offering $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 above asking, we were like, if you go, 30 or 40, over asking, that is huge here. So, I know it's all relevant, but we're basically, everybody's still comfortable at this point. Definitely the social media with the interest rates is making people stir a bit, but I'm, definitely trying to hold them off, saying, 2023, it's going to start, like we might have, a little bit more of an increase and we're going to level out, and just basically telling them, we're in the same spot now than we were a few years ago, and everybody was fine.
Okay, yeah. I'm telling people to buy and hold. What about you, Stephen?
Prices have come down about 2.2% from the month before, and compared to a year ago, it's only down 1%. Markets here in Alberta and the Prairie Province, you could argue, are way more stable, and we don't see fluctuation. And I feel that whatever happens in other provinces, people see that news, but they don't really do anything about it in Alberta. Like, we have people who are sitting on properties from the summer who just think it's going to come back, and they don't adjust quickly enough, and then they end up sitting in the market, accumulating time in the market, and losing the market credibility. So going forward, I think next year will be a very interesting year, because now that people start to realize Toronto, Vancouver prices are permanently higher, people are starting to make structural life changes of deciding, am I going to stay here for the long term? So the people who can afford to stay in the expensive cities will do so. But for the people who look at their income and their career trajectories and don't see them jumping up to 250,000 gross annual income, are starting to look at other options. So I think Edmonton's market, despite the overall market being affected by inflation and interest, will be propped up by cross-boundary immigration, and also international immigration. A lot of people here, as you heard from Justin Trudeau, they're planning 500,000 new immigrants over the next 5 years. And I think people are going to look more and more to the second tier cities like Edmonton, where affordability is way, way better.
A lot of those people are already here, though. They're in education, or they're here in work permits, and then they're going to, allow them into the country. So that number is interesting to me, because I don't know if it actually reflects the actual number of people coming to Canada. More, they're becoming Canadian citizens. Okay, so talking about, I think Victoria is a bit of a second city, but John and Harpreet, you guys, I'm just wondering, do you find that people are retiring to your city? Is that the primary, like, you're kind of a working town, Harpreet, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so Lloydminster always relied on the oil sector. Oil is actually getting better, and the only reason why I'm saying that here is because in the past year, I've seen more and more commercial shops sell or get out full time. So I believe it's becoming more and more productive. We do have a lot of people transferring in job-wise, RCMP officers, also head managers for some of the big companies. And believe it or not, they just are in the process of completing one of the largest Canadian tires, and we have it here in Lloydminster. So,
One of the largest Canadian tires, right?
yeah, so Edmonton has a 2-story one that's huge, and all of a sudden here in Lloydminster, we have one. So, and our population's around that 36,000 mark, so it's probably going to generate more and more people coming in for employment too as well. So.
What about you, John?
Yeah, you know what? We used to be considered the retirement place on the island, because we have the big military base here, and a lot of the military wanted their final postings to be in the Comox Valley, because this is where they wanted to retire. But I would say over the last 10 years, we're seeing a lot more professionals, young professionals, people coming from the big cities, bringing their families, wanted to raise their families in the smaller towns. So I would say it's a good mix. We still get, tons of retirees. We get young families as well. So I would say, you know what? I'm just going to say 50-50. Yeah. All over.
The Oracle.
Yeah.
Are you guys finding that, so during COVID, there was a move towards bigger homes, and there was a home near me that was 6,000 square feet that didn't sell in a normal market during COVID. It just went off. Are you finding now that there's a move back to condos? What about you, Ken? You're muted.
I'm trying to stop the feedback, but yeah, there's somewhat of a move to condos, but Kamloops, excuse me, is a city that people move to for lifestyle. We do have some retirees, but we have a lot of young families that move here out of the Lower Mainland and whatnot, and they're here for lifestyle, and they're here to buy a house with a yard that the kids can play in.
Huh.
And so the condo market is substantial in Kamloops, but it's not like it's a huge retiree place where people come and buy a condo or a townhouse and retire. It's a little more of a blue collar working person's town, and folks come here with their families, their young families, and if you can call it a throwback, you can call it whatever you want to call it, but you look back to the 1970s and 80s when people had a house and a yard and a dog and kids, and that's what people come to Kamloops for.
Okay. Carol and Jeff, you big city folks, are you finding there's a move from bigger houses back to condos?
I kind of both, because the new norm, supposedly, according to stats, is 48% people miss going to the office, but 81% are happy at home. And so they're looking for properties that will allow them to work from home. So if their kids are at home, they're at home. They seem to be still looking, but they're going farther. They're willing to do the commute, and hopefully Toronto's transit is trying to promote that, like even with the GO train going to St. Catharines into Niagara, and proposed to go to Kingston on the east, which would mean right along the 401. So Cobourg, Port Hope, all those type of places, the bedroom communities maybe will be actually seeing an increase. But but condo wise, the average is 750. And so people, for affordability, I was doing my Stephen's line. My evidence-based strategy was that 168,000 they need in salary to afford a $900,000 mortgage or more. And then if the average house price on the lower end is 1.2, that's why some of them are gravitating just because they can't afford. And God forbid she gets pregnant or something and has to stay home, or somebody's sick. But I think the senior market, because of seniors wanting to either downsize into a scenario where they can stay in their home longer versus having to go into like assisted living or whatever, I think a lot of them are trying that option. And so they are still trying to sell their big home in the city and go to PEI. No.
Where we don't have a lot of condos.
East or West Coast, I guess, because when they look at the prices, 350, 400,000, they're walking out with still, easily maybe 5, 6 or more 100,000 in their pocket for their retirement. So.
Okay. What about you, Jeff?
Yeah, and it's probably pretty much echoing a lot what Carol's saying, but I think like during COVID, we really saw a lot of people try to get out of their condos downtown Vancouver and either move further out in the Lower Mainland and certainly out into Laura's area, into the Fraser Valley. And that's really what helped their spike out that ways. So the same idea, like people were cooped up in their 600 square foot condo with their wife, and hopefully they didn't get divorced. And they got their dog, their kid, everything else. And then they say, okay, well, now I can work from home. Well, now I can cash out on this condo and still pick up a single family detached, possibly a rental suite downstairs, have a bit of a backyard. And the problem now is though, people that are being called back to work. So now they have to commute to come back, fighting with the higher gas prices. It's a bit of a challenge, I think, for the people that do have to come back to work. And we are seeing a lot of employers that are encouraging possibly a 2 or 3 day work week coming in, so you only have to commute those couple of days. But our condo market is very, very soft right now. So I don't have a lot. I think for people at this point in time, if you were to downsize, is really not the right move. And I think what you just said, buy and hold for the single family home is probably the wisest decision, because if you're going to downsize right now, like the average single family detached is selling for about $300,000 less than what it did at the beginning of the year. Well, great. So you lost $300,000 on the house, and I can save you $50,000 on the condo. Not so good. However, if we're flipping that back around the other way, and this is a perfect example of a group I'm working with right now, where we just sold their condo downtown, and they're upsizing to a townhouse in New Westminster. So that same, we lost about $40,000 on the sale of the condo, but they saved about $150,000 what that townhouse would have, sold for at the beginning of the year. That's okay. So, yeah.
It's interesting you say that, because I have clients who were wanting to sell, and they had me do a market analysis, and their mortgage specialist at RBC told them that they should really list now because they wanted to get ahead on the market. And they bought their house for about $750,000, and it's now worth about $1.1. And I'm like, that's a great increase.
Fantastic.
But there's not a lot of choice on the market right now. So I said, well, and also of the 40 houses that were listed in their price range in their area, only 5 sold in the past 30 days. So I said, you know what? The market's not great. You're probably not going to get your price. It really is about timing. Why don't we list in February? And what the mortgage special, they have a fixed rate. So they're ahead of the game because they have a fixed rate, I think. And anyway, I said, if you can buy in the spring and buy and sell in the spring, so list in February, sell, have a long closing date, and then buy, you're going to end up way ahead of everybody else because you're going to have the choice and the prices are going to go down. I mean, the choices are going to go up. You're going to be able to get a better deal in the spring. And I'm thinking, even if you get less money for your house, you're going to be paying less money overall because you're moving across the market.
Right.
Anyway,
I think according to the bank, when I spoke to one of the guys there, he had mentioned about the fact that in the next couple of years, for people who are sitting on their money that maybe moved into renting, they sold high and now they're waiting to see what happens. He thinks there's going to be a lot of opportunities because of the fact not only the mortgage coming up and people maybe have not going to be able to afford their mortgage renewals if the rates are increased, but also the fact that he feels a lot of Canadians are in a scenario where they're maxed out on their credit lines, maxed out on everything, and that they're in debt. And so he said that's going to compound on top of the fact that mortgages are coming due as well.
Yeah.
And
Harpreet.
That's what's happening here, and it's been like that for a while. So we have so many properties available on the market that are still priced too high because the sellers cannot afford to drop and pay commissions. And it's unfortunate because there's always that potential buyer that will pay whatever for it, but we're seeing that quite a bit, and that's also the other reason why you're
protect our commission clause again.
Yeah. Decrease in prices on some of these properties. However, I'm also noticing the trend where all of a sudden there's a bunch of buyers that got pre-approved with the current interest rate, whatever's happening, because they can lock it in for about, 60, 90 days.
Yeah.
And then they're all on hold to buy because they want to see what the announcement is December 7th.
Mm-hmm.
And if that increases, that bunch of buyers will end up buying, in December.
I think we're going to have a rush.
Yeah. So
Yep.
you get these little rushes until Bank of Canada announces what's happening, right? But you know what? In the end, we've had such low interest rates for so long, it's bound to happen. And at least they're not paying 20% like a lot of people did way back in the day. That was crazy.
Yeah, at least they're not 20%. John, what are you finding? Is that the strategy with your clients as well, that they're waiting?
Well, you know what? We actually took 2 homes off the market last week. We're coming into that rainy, gray season. So we made the decision to take their home off the market because, they were priced high. They've been on the market for about 5 months. We're going to try it in the spring. We think there's going to be better opportunity. And Jane, really, I'm going to do exactly what you just said. We're going to list in, we're going to list in February and buy in probably April or May. So,
Right. Yeah. Okay. And Rebecca, what's happening with your clients? Are you finding people are wanting to take their houses off the market now?
Yeah, we've had a few. More so, I'm finding a lot of vacant land at this time of the year for whatever reason. But I still find these sellers are really striving to get those top dollars. So they're trying to persist maybe just a little bit longer than they should.
Right. Stephen, you're saying that your market is fairly flat, but what are you telling people right now? I mean, I tell people if they want to sell, it actually is a good time because the list to sale ratio is like it's going to be 1 to 1.2 again. We always oversell in December. What do you tell people who want to list right now?
Historically, people, and I think in all markets, believe that their house will sell when it's most pretty outside. That is, your lawn is green. We don't have the benefit of Victoria where the grass is always green. So we have the brown season from March till May, where everything outside is dusty and dirty, right? So there's always a rush to list your house in the April to June season. But I actually, interestingly enough, was called to write a sworn statement affidavit for a lawyer on a litigation file. And another realtor just made a blanket stereotype that houses always sell for more in the summer. And that was not true. I went back to this data for a few years. And often, if a house is well priced, a similar type of house often could sell for higher, again, because we all know supply and demand. If the demand stays strong for whatever economic reasons and there's nothing to look at, people tend to not haggle as much, especially if they're relocating and moving to town or having to fulfill a rate hold deadline. Then for sure, I see what other people have seen as a potential mini spike of traffic. And that happens every time there's a rate change, especially if it's going upwards. People who are in the position where, they have to pay a higher interest rate. If they don't buy in the next 30 days, they start to act quickly. So in terms of your overall question, where do I see things going is I think this coming year, potentially, if inflation stabilizes or is on the way down in a consistent trajectory and the interest rates stay the same or maintain its current rate, that within a few months and they realize there's nothing to look at, people will start bidding houses up again, especially if your market has none of inventory. And again, the key thing is people just want a stable financial environment, and inflation and interest rates, the second they start to stabilize, that's when I think the market's going to start moving again.
Yeah, it always seems to be one end or the other. I find like buyers are always betting that the market's going to go up, or sorry, down, and sellers are always betting that the market's going to go up. So a buyer wants to buy and get the best price for the long term, and the seller wants to sell and maximize their price right now. Okay, so let's close out here. Tell us what your prediction is for next year, Laura June.
Well, not even getting into next year, I think we're going to see a mad rush on anything strata in the next few months. I think suddenly when things open up, that everything will be rentable. All the investors, if you have money, you're going to jump in now while prices are a bit down, and you are going to scoop up this property. We already have inventory issues and nothing to show, like you say, Jane. So that will cause prices to spike. There is the third thing that they were implementing that we were talking about earlier, was they were going to work with municipalities to try to increase, housing startups and all that. That's what they want.
Oh, yeah.
So that'll help, but that's years out from helping. I think we're going to have a very hot next few months, and then come spring, prices will be up again. That's what I think is happening.
Okay. Very optimistic.
Yes.
John.
Yeah, you know what? What Ken was saying earlier, we are in a normal market right now. So I think it's going to be a normal market for the Comox Valley in 2023. And I think it's going to be great. So I don't think we're going to see the mad rush like June or Laura June was saying over the next few months on condos in this area. But I think it's going to be a good, steady year, nothing too crazy, fair pricing once sellers wrap their head around that they can't get what their neighbors did back in February, but that's coming. So I think it's going to be good.
Okay, Harpreet.
I believe our market's going to be consistent, and I'm hoping to see a slight pricing increase, knowing that everything is increasing anyways. The standard of living is the cost of everything. So I'm hoping that will happen, but I believe our market will stay consistent and hopefully eventually start graduating up.
Okay, Carol.
I think we need a new premier. No, but since you guys are good, I'm not as optimistic. I think I've been following a lot of the economists' viewpoints, and I mean, if we can just have a regular, steady market, I prepare people for the fact that our MLS is for 60 days because that's how long it used to take for a property to sell. So I'm using my evidence base to more or less say to them, they just have to be realistic. And I'm happy if it's even just a steady market. I don't expect huge spikes for in sales. The only thing is that it is a good opportunity for some investor buyers or buyers who are sitting on the fence, that they may be able to take advantage of, unfortunately, somebody else's demise if they have to sell for whatever reason. And even including relocation stuff is a lot of them are worried about taking a transfer because they're not sure how much of a hit they're going to take, or whether it's better to rent the property until they see what's going to happen in the market and face capital gains. So there's a lot of stuff going on. There's still uncertainty, and maybe it's just within our province more. But I mean, I'm hoping for just a regular market. I don't expect any huge revelations.
Okay, Jeff.
Yeah, so I see right now we are slow in sales. We're down 50%, and I get it. It's down to like what a regular market should be. And I got to say, it is definitely refreshing to get out there and put an offer on something where I don't have 15 people behind me putting an offer in and coming in condition free and a couple $100,000 over list price, where I can actually come in and negotiate. So for that matter, I think the general home buyer, we'll probably see a bit of an uptick, I think, in the spring. Hopefully, if we start to see interest rates, come under control. But it's interesting with this new wild card that's coming out, as you say, with on Thursday, if that's the case, when this announcement's going to be made, where all of a sudden there's not going to be rental restrictions. CMHC says a rental market, or a healthy rental market, should be at 5%. Here in Vancouver, I think we're 0.3. So like we have no product whatsoever. It's actually harder to rent something than it is to buy something. So we're going to see the investors maybe target some of those buildings that listings price quite low, and I could never get in there before. And I'm going to look at this myself. Maybe I'll pick one up and rent one out, right?
Yep.
And get top dollar. So that's going to be interesting to see over this next little bit. But for the general home buyer, I think we're going to be fairly flat, which I kind of look forward to.
Yeah, I'm predicting that if there is a run on the market, there will be with people. Obviously, cash is always king, and the people who are being impacted are the ones who have not bought, and their interest rates are going up. They're going to be marginalized. They're going to be moving back into the rental market, which will increase rental revenue and, unfortunately, make investing in condos more affordable. Okay, let's go, Stephen.
Okay.
What do you predict is going to happen next year?
Well, I still have some people who are on a rate hold, of course, at a higher rate hold now, like 5 to 5.4% range. So if we get an announcement before the end of the year, anticipated 50 basis points and maybe a smaller one early next year, there should be a mini surge of people who are going to buy in the late year, early next year. We predict our market in Edmonton will be fairly stable, and by the late spring, there could be a little short recession that the Bank of Canada keeps talking about, and we always get affected by market sentiment in the bigger provinces, but I think by middle of the year, we're going to be more of a normal market. I see this as a post-pandemic market.
Okay, Rebecca, everyone's going to move to Charlottetown.
Yes, I'm here to help. Yeah, so, I feel like once we, and not just PEI, but everybody works through or maneuvers through the whole interest rate hikes and the social media hype about it, educating our buyers is huge because, they're listening to the wrong people. I think our springtime rush will still happen regardless. But we are definitely more balanced or a normalized market here. I'm actually just looking forward to some time off, to be honest with you, because that was a go for, I think, for all of us. So, yeah.
Okay, Ken, you are muted right now. So if you want to unmute.
Yeah, I think it's going to be kind of normal or return to normal. One thing, any of you that were at the conference and listened to Benjamin Tal when he spoke, he's the CIBC economist that spoke. I thought he was excellent. Couple of things he said was that, for starters, the central bank and the government of Canada want a recession. And so this is one of the things that they're doing and pushing for a recession so that they can make it look like they wrestled inflation to the ground and blah, 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 which is dumb. And so he said that the bank quite often and governments are guilty of overreach on increasing interest rates. And so he's really hoping that the bank shows some moderation in these interest rate increases and that they level out pretty soon. He's looking for probably another rate increase in December, but then he's looking to have them level out through 23 and start to decline again in 24. So hopefully that happens. I think that the bulk of the population out there, despite what they're hearing in the news about interest rates being dangerous for people, the only people that are in trouble are people that have an interest rate, like a review on their mortgage coming up this coming year, and that have been using their houses as an ATM because they've been going up so fast in the past few years, and they've been sucking on that line of credit like crazy. And now they're mortgaged to the eyeballs, and they might not be able to swing it if they get an interest rate increase. And so we might see a little bit of a bump in foreclosures come this spring in certain market areas. But I think by and large, if people have had some sense about them and are not looking at a big jump in interest rates, we'll probably be okay and be able to ride it out.
And I just want to say, just for everybody who's watching, foreclosures are not really easy. They're not an easy purchase because you have to go to court. Other people can come in, they can outbid you. The process may be different in other provinces, but it's always not always a good deal. And you may have to wait until the price comes down because the bank is always going to want to maximize their value. All right. So just a reminder, everybody, as well, that the market, obviously, as you see, is dependent on where you are and where you live. And so please contact your local realtor. In this post after, we're going to have everybody go in on the social media, and we're going to have them plug in what their coordinates are. So telephone number, email, and website, so that we can give you their contact information and you can follow up with them about what the value is of your house in your area. Thanks so much for joining, everybody, and go Remax.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks. Great seeing all of you. Nice to have a nice spectrum across the country today.
Absolutely.
Okay, stay on the line for a second.
Caroline, for a second.
Yeah.